Distortions in history is being used to dismantle the very ideological foundations of modern India. The idea of Bharat, deliberately they have omitted India in it. India is a land for unity in diversity. The diversity is being now rejected. Later day immigrants cannot call the yesteryear's immigrants as traitors, as foreigners, as aliens. The word Hindu is being gradually replaced by Sanatana. The Vedic Aryans were not idol worshippers. When and where and why they adopted a temple system, this should be explained. Basic foundation of Indian state is being dismantled by, in a way, so-called dictats emanating from the BJP government in India. The Brahmanic thoughts are totally absent. Buddhism is demonized. Why this neglect of South in ancient Indian history? Then you call it ancient North Indian history. Don't make it a territorial history and then or a sectarian history. We want a real India. We want a plural India. We want a liberal India, secular India. That concept should be strengthened by a real ancient Indian history. The core of the subject had already been dealt by our esteemed senior professor Irfan Habib. I am expected to focus on the tampering with the ancient history, ancient Indian history. We want to make it one thing clear. That is, we are resisting distortion and we are nothing against the revision of history books. History is not a scripture. History is not to be treated as an unalterable scripture. History has to undergo transformation with the discovery of new facts and with the emergence of various interpretations. It has to become more and more inclusive. But we are more concerned with, under the pretext of rewriting history, there is an official move to distort the established history of India. History has to be evolved through academic exercises and not from the dictats from the officialdom or from the ministry. And new discoveries and interpretations will be accommodated in due course. Here we don't find all the historians of the past as enemies of India or as conspirators. There may be inadequacies in their writings. There may be omissions commissioned in their writings that can be perfected through academic deliberations. But today what is being done is that something is imposed on us as history which is irrational and very often it is inhuman too. The present attempts of the government, the BJP government, is that it abuses the University Grant Commission to impose a unitary syllabus on all the higher education institutions throughout India. Professor Habib have referred to the UGC syllabus for BA program, and this is not for any academic purpose. This is meant for a political hidden agenda. The history is used, or the distortions in history is being used to dismantle the very ideological foundations of modern India. Modern India is a democratic India, a federal India, a secular India and a liberal India. These ideological foundations are being dismantled by this what you call tampering with ancient history. One such, for the sake of time constraint, we can mention only a few things here. First thing, for the first time, the students are told to have a full paper on the idea of Bharat. It is a fact that Constitution refers to India, that is Bharat, as a union of states. India is a primary concern. Bharat is an alternate name. So far in the history textbooks, the idea of India was discussed. It was explained. That idea was meant for an inclusive India. It recognized India as a multicultural, multi-ethnic, multilinguistic entity. And that idea of India was not based on what you call any communal or sectarian considerations. How the idea of India was evolved through experiences, how we realized the modern Indian state, the sense of India, everything is explained in the idea of India. But in this paper, a compulsory paper for the BA history students, the first paper is the idea of Bharat. Deliberately they have omitted India in it. It is never explained as idea of India. Yet they simply mention that idea of Bharat. Not only that, the content of that particular paper and the 5 divisions of that particular paper and the references books mentioned in that particular paper are all Sanskrit scripture oriented, mythology oriented, and it is not an inclusive nation that is presented there. Only the Vedic tradition is being emphasized, focused in this particular paper. If you accept that without any protest, if you don't challenge it, what would become to India? India is a land of unity, land for unity in diversity. That diversity is being now rejected. India becomes a unitary state with a unitary culture, and everything derives their existence from a single source. It is not only irrational, unscientific, it is also meant to curtail the equality, dignity of other constituents of the Indian state. There are too many ethnic groups, too many linguistic groups, religious groups, cultural groups in India, and no one can be treated as a subordinate to one mainstream. Here everybody is subordinate to one mainstream Vedic stream according to that explanation, the idea of Bharat. Everything emanates from Vedas. Nothing can be pre-Vedic. Nothing can be non-Vedic. Everything was confined to the Vedic expansion and extension. But Indian state today is based on the very concept that it is a heterogeneous state. Different groups, different ethnic groups, different languages, different cultural groups, different religious groups can live together in this land. And the unity would be based on equality. Nobody is to be demonized in this. Nobody is to be made the superior in comparison with others. So here, how you are going to arrange the differences within the particular framework? India has seen invasions. There were immigrants, invaders, and all of them have become settled in India. And the later day immigrants cannot call the yesteryear's immigrants as traitors, as foreigners, as aliens. So this Indian civilization, if you want to make it very clear, a federal civilization, was the outcome of interaction between various groups, various cultural groups, various social groups. There are, even today, there are distinct cultures. There is also an evolved synthetic culture. The Hindutva history does not accept that synthetic process in Indian life. It rejects it. According to them, there can be nothing non-Vedic, there can be nothing pre-Vedic. That is why they now try to tamper with the earliest civilization of India, Indus Valley civilization, by changing the nomenclature from Indus Valley civilization, Harappan civilization into Sindhu Saraswati civilization. They think they can make it Vedic civilization. Not only that, they now predate the Vedas, predating Veda. The Indian culture commences in 10,000 BC. Since nothing can be pre-Vedic, we will have to construe that the Vedic culture commenced in 10,000 BC itself. As Professor Habib very clearly pointed out, that goes against the scientific facts that would help the scripting of history. Here predating the Vedas and stating that even the Harappan civilization was a part of the Vedic culture is nothing but distorting history and denying the plural contributions that India received from the various groups. Why they introduce a monoculture history in India now? Monoculture history and everything, as the Sudarshan Rao, who was the chairman of the Indian Council of Historical Research, once commented that everything must be related to Vedas, nothing could be pre-Vedic. This is a dictated concept which is being made to be accepted as history by the students, innocent students. History has to be improved through inquisitive questions. There must be deliberations whether the given fact is acceptable or not, whether the interpretation is acceptable or not. Through deliberations only we can perfect history. Not by the official verdict. You cannot conclude, you cannot make a proclamation that would be deemed as history. Yet this is one serious effect, that dispensing with the terminology India and using only that Bharatiya or Bharat as the identity of an emerging nation, new nation, and then describing that Bharat through Sanskrit scripture alone would be a mischievous one. That would make non-Sanskritic groups in India as somebody who are secondary citizens or who are unreliable citizens or inimical to the main culture. The ancient India is described in such a way that only the Vedic culture is the mainstream, others are secondary or what you call lesser streams, as once K.N. Neelakanta Shastri explained. So this is a dangerous trend. Then when they push back the date of the early civilization to 10,000 BC, naturally they will have to indulge in euhemeristic practices. They must make myths as histories. That is why Ramayana and Mahabharata are being attempted to be historical facts. Using Mahabharata and Ramayana to derive some historical conclusion is something different. Accepting Mahabharata, Ramayana and all the Puranas as real history is something different. This euhemerism is adopted by this present regime. And also they make a very mischievous move. The word Hindu is being gradually replaced by Sanatana. As an example, I would show you an ad given for the Nalanda University. In the ad, besides the Buddhist studies and philosophy, they mention Hindu studies, within bracket Sanatana. The Indian historians, especially of the remote past, used to consider the word Hindu a convenient terminology to incorporate Vedic and non-Vedic streams. The Vedic Aryans were not idol worshippers. Their rituals were based on only the yajnas. They became the idol worshippers later stage, from whom they got this system. When and where and why they adopted a temple system, this should be explained, because that was the result of a synthesis. The pre-Vedic people had the temple system or a idol worship system. So they adopted the deities of other groups in India and approved them. That is why Shankara himself had given a list of 6 religious groups who are amenable to the Shankara's Vaidigic order, Sanatana order, Shanmata. All these Shanmatas were non-Vedic systems. They were adopted for the priestly purposes of the influential segment in the society. So in Hinduism, by Hindu we mean a group which includes both Vedic, non-Vedic, a culture which includes Vedic culture and non-Vedic cultures. In fact, you will include even the Shramanic ideas, Shramanic developments, and the Dravidian ideas and Dravidian architecture. India's civilization derived its sources from different quarters. Vedas are not the only source. There were very many other sources from which the present day system was evolved. Social beliefs, social arrangement, everything. Not everywhere the same Chaturvarna system is followed. There were other systems too. Not everywhere the primogeniture was practiced. There were matrilineal succession too in India. Why these differences from region to region? If it was from one single stream as a source, there was no need for the diversified social and cultural developments. Because India was a land of diversity, because it was a multi-ethnic country, multicultural country, multilinguistic country, the differences had become indispensable and became part of the Indian culture. This particular aspect is totally absent in the ancient Indian history as prescribed by the University Grand Commission. And this University Grand Commission itself, I will tell that it plays the role of an usurper. The syllabus making must be left to the academic bodies. The universities has been doing it through the Board of Studies and academic councils. The UGC is only an administrative body under the control of the central government. How the administrative body could usurp the academic responsibility of framing a syllabus for history? This shows that their interest in speedily distorting Indian history to effect a psych change in the minds of the upcoming generation. So for them, India is one nation, one culture, and one entity. But our makers of Indian Constitution were very clear that India was a nation of nations. India was a federation, union of states with different cultures. And this basic foundation of Indian state is being dismantled by the, in a way, so-called diktats emanating from the BJP government in India. The new education policy stresses much on the ancient glorified past, glorious past. Ancient historians are not, history is not meant for seeking pride and developing prejudices. History is meant for seeking the truth and try to cementing a nation. But here they use the history, ancient history, to demonize some people who are already within the society, to demonize a system which were not amenable to the influential segment. The Shramanic thoughts are totally absent in the ancient Indian history. Buddhism is demonized, as Irfan Habib has referred to. Ashoka's Buddhist pacifism was responsible for the decline of the Mauryan Empire. The Mauryan Empire lasted for nearly 180 years. The Guptan Empire did not last more than 150 years. They did not explain what were the causes of the decline and fall of the Guptan Empire. For them, Guptan age was a golden age. Why this differential treatment? From the days of Nandas to the fall of Harsha, the dominant faith system was Buddhist system. Most of the architecture, sculpture, everything belonged to Buddhism and Jainism. Shramanic thoughts, Shramanic ideas, Shramanic cultures were very much popular in the Indian subcontinent. But ancient Indian history tried to marginalize the non-Vedic streams from the Indian history. Ancient history means that ancient India and history. History must be rational, scientific. Ancient means a chronology. What is ancient to the North India was not ancient to South India. Medievalism commences, according to them, from the advent of Islamic rule. In northwestern part of India, it commenced in the 8th century. In the Gangetic Valley in the 10th century. But in the extreme south, it was in the 14th century. So there was no chronology, the chronological cohesion in it. And territorially, ancient India totally is silent on South India, as if South does not exist. Our recent excavations revealed, archaeological enquiries revealed that there was an urban culture in the extreme south, Tamil Nadu, the Madurai region, by about 7th century BC. That 7th century BC coincides with the second urbanization in the Gangetic Valley, Solasa Mahajanapada. Solasa Mahajanapada is given a passing reference, but the southern urban centers are totally omitted in the ancient history. The Sadavahanas were there, only a passing reference is made to Sadavahanas. Why this neglect of South in ancient Indian history? Then you call it ancient North Indian history. Make ancient Indian history a truly ancient Indian history. Don't make it a territorial history and then or a sectarian history. Today they try to project the ancient history, try to make the ancient history as a sectarian history. The modern India should have its foundations in a secular history, which recognizes that the heterogeneity of its past. If that heterogeneity is not adequately explained in ancient history, then wrong thoughts may emanate from the young generations. This has to be aware. History will have an impact on younger minds. And what we are interested is that the younger mind should derive from history a better idea about a nation, better idea about a past, not a concocted story. They want to treat all the myths as histories. And if we don't do it, we are being called traitors, as if we follow the footsteps of the Westerners. But for the James Prinsep, this Brahmi script would not have been deciphered. But for Cunningham, the Buddhist humanism would not have seen the light. But for Marshall, the Dravidian civilization of Harappa could not have been a history, could not have become history. So we don't consider all the foreign historians, archaeologists as traitors. You may have difference of opinion in their conclusions. Then debate on it. And scientific rational reasons must guide your deliberations and not your faith in a particular scripture, particular Puranas or particular myth. That should not be the guiding force of history making. History has to be made with territorial constraints, chronological constraints, with also, as Professor Habib mentioned, should be an inclusive one. The different segments in the given territory should be given adequate space in the history scripting. This BJP government does not want it. They try to, even the word Hindu has become uncomfortable to them, because by Hindu we could bring in the Dravidian architecture and what you call the Bhakti movement of the South. Now they want to replace it with Sanatana. Sanatana is exclusively oriented on Smritis. It has nothing to do with the other the Sramana thoughts or the Dravidian thoughts, and that insists on one particular social arrangement which has been despised by many generations and a vast majority of the people. So this sectarian interest should not be allowed to become history of India. We want a real India, we want a plural India, we want a liberal India, secular India, and that concept should be strengthened by a real ancient Indian history. Thank you.
உன் கடவுளை விட, உன் சாஸ்திரத்தை விட, உன் முன்னோரை விட, உன் வெங்காயம் வழக்கமாத்தை விட உன் அறிவு பெருசு, அதை சிந்தி.